I'm Mark Bell. I'm owner of SuperTraining Gym. I'm a father of two. I'm a husband. I have a few inventions in the fitness space.
Mark's a very interesting person. He's probably one of the more interesting personalities that I know. He definitely wears many hats.
I get the question a lot about what is Mark like in real life? Because I think there's probably, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 versions of Mark. There's Mark training, there's Mark competing, there's Mark on social media, and then there's Mark at home.
He's probably the most successful person in powerlifting. He's done the lifts, he has broke records, he's given out free information, and then created products that make lifting easier and more fun.
The impact that Mark and this company has had on the fitness industry, in my opinion, is second to none. Mark has been putting out videos since before YouTube. He has probably more videos than any fitness influencer on any social media platform. The best way I can sum it up is name me an influencer that Mark hasn't influenced.
My brother Mark is one of the most interesting people. I always say he's like the dumbest, smartest guy in the world because he never reads books and he never studies, but everything is done practically inside the gym and with his own body. And he's been able to figure out things that no one else has been able to figure out, including inventing the Sling Shot.
From a factual standpoint, the Sling Shot is a supportive upper body device for bench press, push-ups, dips. It allows you to handle more reps for more sets, more overall volume. It allows you to add more workload to your training. And it's a product that I invented 10 years ago. I've been a competitive powerlifter since the time I was 12 years old. I'm 43 now, so over 30 years in the game, in the sport of powerlifting. I've been hurt every which way you can think of. Torn my biceps, torn my triceps, torn hamstring, and torn pecs is what really led to the invention of the Sling Shot.
It was a series of events that led to the creation of the first Sling Shot. The reason why we started the company was a couple things. I had just lost my job. Leading up to that time, Mark was a kept man and didn't have a real job. And so when I lost my job, we lost our income. And so we had to figure out a way to make a living. And that's when we launched Power Magazine, which is a magazine that we ran for several years, and Mark came up with the idea of the Sling Shot. He had had the idea for quite a while and needed to figure out a way to make it a product. And he didn't know anything about textiles or materials. And so after researching and talking to many different people and doing all this stuff, he came up with a concept. And then the concept became a prototype, and then the prototype became something that we could actually take to market. So that whole process took from basically 2008 till it launched in 2010.
The way it started was one day I was over at Starbucks getting a coffee, and I come walking out of Starbucks, and there he is with his hat on backwards and sunglasses, and he's on his iPhone, and his feet are up on the table as he's sitting in the chair. And he says, "Oh, Dad, sit down." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You're here for a reason." And I'm like, "What? What's the reason?" And he goes, "I came up with this fantastic idea." Now, at the time, Andee had lost her job. I think they were just receiving unemployment at the time. They had a house, they had one child, you know, they had a lot going on, and like almost no money coming in, you know. And so I sat down and I said, what's the reason that I'm here?" And he said, "I came up with an invention and I need $17,000. I met him there a couple days later, and he showed me the prototype. And at first he showed me with a big, you know, the big rubber bands that they have, and he asked me to hold the excess over here, and he was doing this with it, you know, because he had it around his arm. And then he said he was going to show me the prototypes. Then he showed me the prototype, and I'm like, that's pretty good. It does what the band was doing, but who's going to buy this? And he goes, "Oh, are you kidding me? Powerlifters all over the world will buy this." And I'm like, "Who are they? You're the only powerlifter I know."
Mark has always been creative, and that started, I think, back when he first started with professional wrestling and learning how to cut promos and how to talk on camera, and that sort of led him down this path to be a power lifter. But when our older brother Mad Dog died, I think he got inspired, and he decided, like, I already have a wife, I already have a kid, we're not here for that long, and I better do something with my life. And I think that triggered him to really follow his passions and invent the slingshot, which I think has always sort of been in his head since the first day he put on a bench shirt and thought that he could make something that's better than a bench shirt and much easier to use.
There's some unintended results of being an inventor that are kind of neat. I didn't make the slingshot to work for dips. I didn't make the slingshot to work for push-ups, and I didn't design the slingshot to allow you to handle more weight. I wasn't trying to create like a bench shirt like you might see in powerlifting. I was simply trying to figure out, how can I still lift because I keep getting hurt? How can I train through and around these injuries that I keep facing? Even with my knowledge of training, I was trying to be the best powerlifter in the world. And so sometimes that stuff's a roll of the dice. I ended up bench pressing 854 pounds. I ended up squatting over 1,000 pounds, squatting 1,080. And when you're chasing after that elite status and you're trying to get to that next level, just really led to a lot of injuries. So I needed to make a product that was going to still allow me to do what I love. I love to train, I love to lift weights. And the second that even just part of it is taken away from you, it just makes you feel like crap. I could still come in and squat, I could still come in and deadlift, but man, I loved bench pressing. I loved being a full power lifter. I loved being able to do all 3 lifts and having full access to those lifts. And once I created the product, once I made the product, I was now able to kind of gift that to other people, share that with other people. I felt that there would be a strong calling towards it.
I think the slingshot is really important because as we move forward, we're always evolving and we're always learning how to do things better, right? And if you look at some of the top world record holders of all time in the bench press, they're using a slingshot to make themselves better. So I think it's really important in just the fact of thinking outside the box and creating something that can help people get stronger without getting hurt, because a big part of Mark and I's career in powerlifting involved getting hurt, and we didn't want to see other people wearing down their joints. I feel it's an important innovation in strength training to think outside the box.
Being a younger guy, being in my 20s, I remember hearing older guys that were now the age that I'm at, they used to say, oh, I used to do that back in the day, man. I used to stack on 4 plates, or I used to do 3 plates. And I always thought to myself, well, why can't these punks, why can't they still do it? Why can't these older guys still do it? And the main factor was that they got injured, they got hurt, or something just got too uncomfortable along the way and they just could no longer lift those weights. And I would always say, when I'm older, I'm gonna be still moving around those weights. As I got older and as I got deeper into the sport of powerlifting, I myself got hurt many times over and started to recognize the problems, and trying to come back from those injuries, a lot of times you're just never the same. You can be tough mentally, you can try to do everything physically the right way, and it just seems like nothing ever heals up quite the way it once was. And to get those newbie gains that you had when you were a teenager or when you were in your early 20s, all that is kind of history and behind you. And so I wanted to create a device that would allow people to get back to doing what they love. I've met people at seminars and at trade shows, and they've come up to me crying because they love, it might sound silly, but they love bench pressing that much, and it's been taken away from them simply just because they love to do it. They maybe have done it too often. They maybe have tried a little bit too heavy of weight because they love lifting heavy weights, and as a result, they ended up with an injury to their elbow, an injury to their shoulder, an injury to their pec. But with the slingshot, you can still train through those injuries, and you can also handle more weight. So maybe someone who's in their 40s, 50s, 60s could handle weights that they were throwing around when they were younger.
Mark and I got married actually, it'll be 20 years ago this August, which is just almost exactly a month after the launch of the slingshot. So we had been married almost 10 years before we started this company. In that 10 years, I worked in advertising. I had what you would call a 9-to-5 regular job the entire time during that 10-year span. Mark, on the other hand, was a bouncer, a personal trainer, a fitness enthusiast, working on many, many different things. And it worked for us. Like we just had our roles. He worked on that, and I had my job, and we just made it work. And I was fine to be like that forever. And then in 2008, when the real estate bubble burst is when reality really hit, and I lost my job. I hadn't been out of work since college. I'd always had a job. I'd always had a pretty good job. Meanwhile, I'm panicking and I'm like, well, we have a mortgage and we had just had our second child. So we have 2 kids and a house we had just bought, and I was definitely freaking out, and he was his typical, like, it'll all work out.
I would describe Mark as a very loving and caring person. He stays very focused and very consistent. No matter what's going on, he doesn't get too ruffled. I think that's a good quality to have. When Mark said that he came up with an invention, my first thought was, wait a minute, you need to have money week to week, you know? And I thought, well, how's that gonna work out? And then I figured, you know what? He's married, he has a child, he has a wife. They're gonna all Andee and Mark will figure it out together, and they don't need any kind of you can out of us. So I'll just back up and pray for him and pray for their idea and pray for him to go forward in it and to know what he's doing. And I did pray this prayer: Lord, wake up every power lifter across America and across the world and let them know they need a slingshot.
It took off like a rocket ship, you know. The first order came in and it sold out like in no time, and they were doing it all out of their garage. It was amazing. Almost a miracle. You know, I had no idea.
He knew much faster than I knew that the slingshot was going to be this big idea. I was more skeptical.
Having the idea that the slingshot, I knew it just wasn't enough. I knew that the slingshot could be very successful, but I knew that it was going to be important to turn the slingshot idea, take it from an idea, turn it into an invention. The difference between an idea and an invention is that you actually go through with making it, which most people don't do. You have to actually go through with making the product. I knew it was going to be massively important, though, to grow the company the correct way, that I had to turn that idea into an invention and then sprinkle some seeds on it and water it every single day and turn that invention into an actual business.
Yeah, I remember Mark first told me about the slingshot, and right away I think I was one of the only people that got what he was talking about and understood what it could do. The second that I saw it, I was like, this is revolutionary. You're basically just taking the top half of the bench shirt, the part that actually does something, and sort of manufacturing that into something that's really easy to put on and really easy to use. And so you can slip on a slingshot and increase your bench press by like 50 pounds, you know, or by like probably 10%, I should say, in like 5 seconds. And you can train safely without getting hurt and progressively just keep getting stronger. And I think that's why it's a really important factor in people's training.
The company started out with a very solid foundation based on the product itself, the slingshot, what everything really started with, plus Andee and Mark being, one, passionate about it, but quite prepared to take on the big task of bringing that to the market and bringing it to the world. What they've done is taken something that was a wonderful idea, a very helpful to the sports that it applies to, and then added product lines and different applications so that the company is now on this path to grow and really touch different markets that it hadn't before.
Creating the product was kind of difficult. I think a lot of times when people think about making a product, I think they think it's going to be this like huge ordeal, and especially, you know, the more complicated the product, the worse off your thoughts probably are. But I think something that can be valuable to people is to understand that the anxiety that you have over that, the anxiety that you may have over the hurdles that could potentially be there, they are all, you know, anxiety is fear over things that haven't happened. So there's when you say it that way, it's like, well, there's really no reason to be scared of it, right? So I want to encourage, I want to urge people to give things a shot, because I did. I gave something a shot. I gave something a try. I was scared too, you know. I was nervous about it. I didn't know what would happen, but it wasn't really something that was that scary, because my initial investment, I think, was like $600, which at the time I didn't have, so $600 was still expensive for me. But I just took a chance. I just took a shot. I just kept thinking. I just kept I continued to think. I took a concept to my wife's friend that sews together swimsuits for a swim team. I don't think there's anything all that special about that. What I did doesn't require a certain type of genetics. What I did doesn't require a certain type of social status. What I did doesn't require, money, doesn't require anything. It just required me thinking, can this thing that I thought about, can it be beneficial if I go through with making it? And the answer was yes. And when the answer was yes, I pushed forward. There's a lot of companies that come and go, but I'm pretty proud that we not only are still here, but every single year we've gotten bigger. Every single year we've expanded our line. Every single year we've come out with new and innovative products. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, I had no idea when we did the first one, the original Sling Shot, the one product, that we would even do when he's like, I have ideas for other versions. I'm like, whoa, slow down. And now, we just had a meeting earlier where we have like 2,500 SKUs of things. So it's definitely grown to something I never thought it would be. But I'm super proud because it's not been easy, but we have really surrounded ourselves with a really good team. And I think that's been the key, is that we just keep moving forward and we try to make really good decisions. We try to make slow decisions. We try not to do anything too big or too fast, but we try to really be thoughtful. And I think that's why we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
The significance of the 10-year anniversary to me is huge. I have been a part of Sling Shot for 7 years now. I have been working for them like salary and full-time for 6. And to me, that's my livelihood, that's my family. I've been able to accomplish a lot of things in my personal life because of Sling Shot. And so when we're hitting 10 years, it's just another milestone. It's another point on the scoreboard, as Mark would say.
10 years is exciting. Most companies don't make it 10 years. I'm really proud of Mark and I'm really proud of Andee. This is a joint venture with Mark and Andee. Obviously, Mark's the brain power behind what's being created, but I think that you have to have that other side to you that balances you out. And I think like Andee's been there not only to balance him out, just with the business, but like just in life. I've seen her be by his side the entire time, and like honestly, like, I've never seen two people get along so well for so long. It's just not normal in our society these days. So I'm actually just really proud of them as a couple.
We're putting it down that we have endeavored over 10 years to take this really cool kind of off the wall idea that Mark thought of and Andee had the wherewithal to get to market, and now we're here. It's 10 years later, and not only do we have a Sling Shot, we have all these other products that are just killing it.
The 10-year anniversary, I'm super excited. I'm super pumped about it. I would say what it signifies the most personally for me is my relationship with my wife, because I know how to invent products. I know how to be creative. In terms of handling people on a day-to-day basis, handling employees, handling customer concerns, handling our internet, handling this facility, handling our bills for the company, paying the employees, handling employee disputes, handling all the different things that go into business, I, very luckily, I don't have anything to do with. And I never have, and it gives me the ability to be more creative, which I think is a huge service to the company. So having a business for 10 years and having our marriage, I feel like I'm more in love with my wife than I've ever been before. We're going on 20 years of being married as well. So there's a lot of victories in there. There's a lot of things for me to feel really good about. From a competitive powerlifting asshole standpoint, the 10 years signifies planting a flag in the ground and telling everybody else to go fuck themselves, because we're the first company. We're the first man through the wall. They say the first guy through the wall gets bloody. We're the ones getting bloody. We're the ones getting our hands dirty. We're the ones who had to kind of push this entire business and this entire like powerlifting / performance enhancing equipment forward.